if we play these guys 10 games, they're going to probably win 9. And then he says, but not tonight. Leaders in athletics think that they're a good leader when they have a good relationship with all of their players. And he said, not true. You know that you have an outstanding leader / coach is when the players have great relationships with one another.
Hey, before we jump into the podcast, we want to thank all our donors and supporters who make the Today Count show possible. It's through your generosity that we're able to shape leaders through this content and this podcast. And be sure to like, subscribe, and follow wherever you find yourself coming across this content. All right, let's get to the podcast. What's the best leadership lesson you've ever learned? Did it come from a classroom or a game? My name is Winston Harris, and I'm your co-host today on the Today Count show, joined by Jim Piper. Jim, how we doing?
We are doing very well.
About to get into something I love. I think you love it too, sports, game day. And we talk a lot about leadership here on the Today Count show, and we wanted to intersect leadership in sports today and look at maybe 3 specific moments. We might talk about a few more. We might get off track because sports is.
We got to.
It can take us. Take us anywhere. But
we got to. I'm already off track.
Started off track. But man, there's just so much that we can learn from sports, especially as leaders. I grew up an athlete, specifically a basketball player my entire life. I know you predominantly a wrestler.
Wrestler and baseball. Yeah.
Played a little bit of football, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
There's probably a funny story in this.
Yeah. Lots of smelling salts.
Maybe a helmet that didn't fit, some shoulder pads that are oversized. But
yeah,
we're leaning into just what can we pull from sports moments, whether personal or some of the greatest sports moments that we've ever, seen and encountered. And we have, some on deck that we want to jump into. But just want to start this off, Jim, with, what has sports meant to you in your leadership journey?
Well, sports. It's just I'm a sports maniac. I from the time I can remember, going outside to play meant playing ball. I mean, so everything. I think my buddy Rick Miller still has clippings. I think I lost mine, but the front page of the Sun Telegram, which was a big newspaper in San Bernardino, California, had a picture of me and my buddy who we had built a house out of baseball cards. So we collected baseball cards. We knew batting averages. We were just nuts. I've coached. I believe it or not, I've coached basketball. That's a funny story. I've coached baseball, I've coached wrestling. I've coached soccer. I love sports, and it has everything to do with leadership.
Yeah, I think literally one of the first moments the word leadership came across my radar was, I believe, 10th grade. I was on the basketball team for the Brush Beat Diggers. That's a funny story in and of itself. Shout out Brush, Colorado, BHS. And my coach kind of pulls us aside. I think we're supposed to be in like some kind of a class because he was a teacher, but he pulled me and another player aside and gave us this kind of like packet, and it said leadership something or another. And I just the word leadership stood out because in my mind I had never seen myself as a leader. I'm a basketball player.
Right.
I'm an athlete. I don't even really understand what we're about to get into, and that I would say was probably the start of my leadership journey formally.
We probably, as athletes, conveyed leadership as being the best. That's probably all we had at that point. When you,
Basically, how to win.
Yeah, how to win.
Yeah, how to win. The goal wasn't necessarily character formation or helping other people become
team
better
alignment.
people.
Yeah,
no, it was like, how do we win the championship?
Right.
And so we'll get into today, some principles maybe that we can pull from maybe some notable moments in the history of sports, and maybe just jumping off with this one here. This is a memorable one. The 1980 Miracle on Ice. The 1980 Miracle on Ice. We have the 1980 Winter Olympics. The U.S. men's hockey team, Coach Herb Brooks. This group of college players, averaging about 21 years old. They're playing against the Soviet Union, who hadn't lost an Olympic game in 12 years up until that point. They had just beat the NHL All-Stars 6-2. So this kind of David and Goliath stage was set for this game. What were your thoughts behind this? I mean, you were alive. I wasn't even alive for this, but you were.
I saw the game.
You saw the game.
I saw the game, man. I saw the game. Well, and the other thing that your notes doesn't say is that they had a exhibition game against the Soviets, and got absolutely slaughtered.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they got slaughtered, and it wasn't like 2 years before. I mean, it was somewhat within the same season. There's some interesting facts about that that bring out all kinds of leadership examples. So, for example, Herb, the head coach of the Olympic team, he himself, now don't hold me to the details, but he himself was a hockey player and was on that on a Olympic team until the final cut, and then he got cut, and then that team went on to win the gold medal. And so there was something egging him on, and I really identify with this because if you set wrestling aside, there was teams that I wanted to be on. There was things that I wanted to accomplish that I didn't accomplish because I simply wasn't good enough for whatever reason. And there's some. I mean, let me just ask you this: think of a professional coach who accomplished who was world renowned in their athletic achievements. There's not very many of them. Most of them were excellent athletes, but they weren't the
top tier.
The top tier. And it's interesting to me, and some of them you have to do a deep dive to even find did they even play that sport, right? And so the first thing I identify with this story is that I identify with Herb. I love coaching. I love sports, and I may not be good enough, athletic enough to be at that highest level. You can't keep me away from it. My dad said it to me. Others say it to me. I should have been a coach. Well, I am a coach, but I should have been a coach. It should have been, well, that's not what God wanted me to do, but I should have been a coach. There's that passion, right?
Yeah.
So he had, first of all, an underlying passion that probably exceeded a lot of other really good coaches.
And so is it fair to say that as a leader, you need passion?
Well, you do, don't you? I mean, it's not everything, but it's if you don't care. I mean, he wanted to go there.
In this narrative, in this story, in this moment, one of the things about his passion that came out was his pregame speech. It was noted that he said, "You were born to be hockey players, every one of you. You were meant to be here tonight." This wasn't a strategy. This was what we might call a belief transfer, right? That they're once again they're up against this giant of an opponent, and it's not enough to just have X's and O's. But as a leader, he had to help them understand that winning was actually a reality.
Yeah.
Because if all they had was the practical data and information, and okay, you get that guy and you get this guy and you do your thing, in their minds, the players would have to reconcile psychologically, like how is victory possible?
Yeah.
Like we don't even belong here, and we're having to be able to perform. And so as leaders, how often do we get into contexts, whether it's at home, whether it's with an organization, when circumstances are not in our favor, how do we lead through that?
Yeah, I'm sure. I know Herb never heard of my GBU triangle, but he definitely practiced it. If the movie was even at all aligned to reality, he practiced what I call the GBU triangle, which is a leadership triangle. GBU stands for good, bad, and ugly. That when you start working with people as the leader, you have to be grounded in what's good, what's bad, and what's ugly. And one of the things that in the movie that he states to these guys, he says, here's the truth. He said, if we play these guys 10 games, they're going to probably win 9.
That's motivating.
I mean, and then he says, but not tonight. And so all of a sudden, so he's not overstepping reality. This team, and so the vision. So he started with good, bad, and ugly, and so that's a very important leadership thing. Does the leader even know what's going on? Okay, the leader knows what's going on. That gives him permission to say, okay, and this is what we're going to do. So he says, but not tonight. So that's the vision. Not tonight. This is going to be the time we're going to knock them off. If we have to play them in 3 days, they're going to beat us, but not tonight. Not tonight. So that rallied him. And then he reminded them of how that was going to happen. And the three things, or maybe more than three things, but the ones off the top of my head is one, he had already been working on the goalie because the goalie lost his mother. And so that was a whole side story, that was going on. And that guy was better than how he was performing. So there was a whole thing going on there where he pulled someone out of line, so to speak, and got him to where he needed to be because he got killed in their expedition game. Other thing he did is he made these guys skate and skate and skate and skate.
Conditioning.
Yes. And one of the things that my wrestling coach taught me is he said, once you attain a certain level of wrestling, you're going to get into the third period all the time. And the guy who is most conditioned is going to win because of that. So I resonated with that. So he was doing, the prep work. I mean, that was just a couple examples of things. Oh, and the other thing that he did is he would ask somebody to say, what's your name? And you would say, my name is Winston Harris. And you go, who do you play for? And you play for the Beat Diggers, in Brush, Colorado. And that was correct, but it wasn't what he was looking for. And he just kept doing that until people said, my name's Winston Harris and I play for the United States of America. So that's the other thing, that he did. So I think that you have to have something that backs up your passion. And so he understood leadership at a high level because he had all kinds of naysayers from the beginning.
That's great insight. And one of the things that I think you can pull from this story too, as you dig into it, and anybody listening would recommend you watch the movie Miracle, or there's all kinds of documentaries out there on this. But he was willing to not be liked in order to win.
That's tough. Most leaders really struggle with that. Or the leaders get really weird and they like being not liked. Now that's just weird. But he would go
Bobby
back.
Knight?
Yeah, Bobby Knight.
Basketball reference? There's all kinds of, I mean, so he essentially becomes a villain to the point where, it's almost reverse psychology. He goes so hard on the team that the team is forced to rally together almost against him. And that was intentional. What does that look like in a modern day leadership context outside of sports?
I'm almost done reading a leadership book, and unfortunately I forget the name of it because I would like to give kudos to it. But but a lot of it's based on basketball actually. And I think I had like 10 pages and my plane landed and I didn't get to finish it. But one of the things that he said, to your point, Winston, which was really powerful, he says a lot of leaders in athletics think that they're a good leader when they have a good relationship with all of their players. And he said, not true. He said, you know that you have an outstanding leader / coach is when the players have great relationships with one another. And there's a way to get to that versus the other. But to your point about being liked, a lot of us want to be liked. And so that's one dimensional. And then he adds math to it. So if you take, like, let's say, well, how many players are usually in a basketball team? Like 12? Okay. So there's 12 guys in a basketball team. So if you have a good relationship with those 12 players, you got 12 things going on. All right. But if you change the math and they all have a good relationship with one another, I don't know how to do that math, but think about that. That's exponentially more powerful. And that's the point, of being a leader. You're sacrificing yourself, right? And for whatever you're looking for. Oh, you're such a good coach. You've changed my life. You helped me up when I was down, and we all respond to that because there's nothing wrong with that. But,
I think one of the lessons of the principles here is, are you able to identify the type of belief that's necessary for the team to win in the face of adverse circumstances, but also are you willing to not be liked and to build a culture where those who you are leading rally together to achieve the assignment, to achieve the goal. And it can be very low-hanging fruit to just be the type of leader that is accepted, that is celebrated, that is cheered on. But will that actually get you to the championship? Will that get you to the tier, the level that you're trying to lead your organization?
I think this is a really big topic that you've brought up. I mean, however we would write that principle, being a leader is not about being liked. It's not necessarily about being disliked, but it's not about being liked.
Yeah, I think to your point, you can definitely get very unhealthy.
Yeah.
And so maybe being liked is not prioritized.
Right.
But if we're not careful, we can move being liked as
Yeah.
a measurement stick for our
Sometimes we talk
leadership.
about being respected versus being,
What would you say the difference is in respected versus liked?
sometimes to be liked, you're going to do stuff that probably isn't the best thing to do, at that time. And being respected is somebody who's always trying to do what's best
Mm.
all the time, which sometimes won't feel real good.
Ruffle some feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah. This next moment we have here, the 1997 Masters. You're a golf guy.
I love golf.
You're a golf guy. I'm not a golf guy.
I love
I
golf.
just haven't had. I took a golf class
How'd that go?
at my junior college. I passed
Oh, good.
because my basketball coach was the teacher.
Said you're good, man.
Got A plus. Got an A plus at Torrington, Wyoming Community College.
Okay.
And that was the
I
first.
have been to Torrington. I've actually taught
Wow.
at a church in Torrington. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that is an old mining community.
I didn't know. I literally don't know any other person on the earth that knows where Torrington is that doesn't live in Torrington. I played 3 years. They were redshirted 1 year, and then played 2 years of college basketball there. Got 2 associate's degrees
I did not know this about you.
from Torrington, Wyoming
Okay.
Community College. Don't know what those degrees mean, but I got them. Allowed me to play basketball.
I don't think
Um,
I stayed the night there. I think I came in, did my thing, and left.
Yeah, that's probably best. That's probably
Yeah.
best. for
But it was a long
everybody.
drive from Cheyenne, I think. I don't know.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it's probably like two and a half
Yeah,
hours.
yeah.
It's 2 hours away from Brush, Colorado.
And therefore, the convenient place to go.
There you go. So 1987 Masters, Tiger Woods, at age 21, he ends up winning by 12 strokes, the largest margin in Masters history
Unheard of.
at the time. And but the story wasn't the score; it was what he ends up carrying into Augusta. He walked in to this moment exclusively, and I think we all knew this at the time, but one of the whitest sports in America. And him walking into this,
Still probably is.
yeah, predominantly, and he walks into it with the weight of some of his father's words as a young black man. His father said, "I like to think that my son will make the world a better place through his work."
Hmm.
And a father's words are weighty, right? And so you can't just imagine that it was just about performance and it was just about execution, it was just about winning, but there was something more attached to this moment. And he ends up performing and maybe just getting into this space of performing under pressure. And how do leaders perform when there are high expectations on them? What have you seen with leaders that have performed with immense pressure or immense expectation, and maybe some of the parallels that you remember? I was barely I was barely old enough to remember this, but you being in proximity to this story as well, and your leadership experience.
Yeah, I love the story of Tiger Woods. I have a lot of respect for him, regardless of the trouble, that he has experienced in life. That's a whole nother, conversation. But when I watch these social media marketing advertisements, one of the things they try to tell baby boomers like myself is that you don't need to go out to the driving range and hit a thousand balls. If you just do this, it's going to improve. That's hogwash. Um, I can certainly learn from these pros who've picked this and that, but there's a thing called muscle memory, and when I'm not out there, when I don't go to the practice range, and then I go out and play a round of golf, and let's say I haven't played in 6 weeks, I don't really get that muscle memory back on the right way to swing, your balance. It's just there's so many things going on at the same time until hole 14, hole 15, and then you're so exhausted because you've been swinging, every other way. I think what I respect about him is that when you do the research, you hear the stories. The guy was in the gym. He was working out in the gym. I think he did it before golfers knew that was cool. It's almost like golfers they were allergic to weights. I mean,
There was a certain body type. For
there's a
sure.
certain body type. Let's just say it, right? And so he was hitting the weights. He watched his diet and he ran. And then he practiced, and it was a family commitment. It wasn't just him; it was a family commitment.
His father has trained him since 2.
Crazy, and yeah, making the world a better place. Absolutely, absolutely. Probably turned. Some people are not aware of their bigotry. Some people are not aware. They're not aware, and then they become aware, and then they become a fan, and then that helps,
Yeah,
right? It just helps.
break
So
some walls down.
it really
Yeah.
does. It's funny how success does that.
It's funny how success is a unifier.
It really is.
When we win, winning solves a lot of problems.
Going through hell together and sticking together also is a unifier,
Mm.
but most people don't seek that route. You want to win.
Great leaders don't ignore their past, they learn from it. Every decision you've made, every mistake, every win, every failure, it's all shaping the leader you're becoming. In Story, the art of learning from your past, you'll discover how to turn experience into wisdom, setbacks into strategy, and pain into purpose. This isn't just a book about reflection, it's a playbook for growth. If you want to lead with clarity, humility, and confidence, your story matters. Learn from it. Grab your copy of Story, The Art of Learning from Your Past, where books are sold.
Yeah, and I think one of the principles that we're looking at here with Tiger and just this kind of moment beyond the moment is, how do leaders perform under pressure? And I think for, a millennial or younger leaders, it's easy to see, especially in our culture, that the highlights, the reels, the Instagram reels, the TikToks, the snapshot moments, the Spurs moments, the Wemby moments where it's just them holding the trophy or them hitting the game winning shot or the victory lap, if you will. But the process is not necessarily celebrated. The level of work that is required, the summers, the no time off. To your point, the diet, what people are eating. I think about LeBron James at 41 years old playing at the level that he's playing. I think in year 22 in the NBA, which is unheard of. And he's not just existing; he's still one of the top players in the league. But what you really see and hear about is the sacrifice required for LeBron to care for his body,
It
right?
has to be something internal, going on that goes deeper, right?
Yeah, thinking about how it is attractive to be a winner, but are you willing to do the work to win?
Well, and there's a lot of reasons. You get more reasons to quit than you do to keep. Us, in every sport. I mean, and in golf is no different. And that's when you ask me the question about under pressure, there's probably multiple ways to address that. I mean, one of them is your self talk, how you talk to yourself. When when you make a bad shot and then you focus on that shot and you think you're scared that you're going to do that same thing again. There's that resetting, things that you learn how to do. Trusting in the 75% of your shots versus that weird 5% that you just shanked or you did there. So I mean, it's really knowing what you're trying to go after and doing it. I'm kind of in a season in my life like that. I mean, there's a certain thing that I want to accomplish. I'm doing a lot of self-examination as to why, and I find myself constantly being recommitted and recommitted. And it's kind of exciting because there's a certain clarity that's coming with it, and it's almost like I can let that go, I can let this go, I can let that go. And so I think people like the ones that we mentioned are just really good examples that that the how. We may not know all of the why, but his dad gave a real good example of maybe part of what the why was, that it really was that you can change the world. I mean, that's you tell that to your 7-year-old,
Yeah.
but when you're saying it over and over again, and the crowds get bigger and the crowds get bigger, and then all of a sudden he has a clothing line, and then the whole Nike story,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and then he builds his own brand. That's
Yeah. Unheard of. One of the things that we learn about Tiger's story is that um, obviously in the game of golf, composure is a huge part of it. But being able to rehearse in his mind winning before actually being in that moment. That dozens of times in his mind he was at Augusta National before it actually happened. And how important is it to rehearse victory, to see yourself being successful, not in some weird mysticism kind of way, but like envisioning what you want to achieve versus just kind of showing up and hoping it works out.
Yeah, I mean, the old Tony Robbins of the 20th century, Zig Ziglar. I'm trying to think of another one, but they called it imagining or reimagining. Where we talk about visualizing and going there beforehand in your mind, where you're actually seeing yourself hit the shot on the par four hole one, and where you're literally sitting at home, laying in bed, going to sleep, and you're imagining what club you're hitting, where you're going to put it. You're not just hitting it, but you're actually seeing where the ball goes,
Mm,
because you need to lay up there because of where the pin placement's going to be.
mm,
And you're setting up for that second shot. And that's what a lot of folks don't do. But that's another thing where you actually think through. If you're getting up to talk to a group, you're actually thinking about how you're going to walk up there. You're
mm.
thinking about the first word that's coming out of your mouth. You're thinking about um, how often you're going to smile and this or that. And um, maybe you've got a couple pivot points in your talk, and you're already deciding how you're going to go right or left or this, or that. Some people don't have pivots. What they prepare is what they're going to bring. Just uh, uh, he's and not to mention his comebacks, right? I mean, how many times has he been written off?
Yeah.
And then, no, here he comes.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, and I think one of the moments, or one of the things from this moment too, that's worth noting, is that preparation, even that type of preparation, gives you the ability to be flexible in that moment. And sometimes we think flexibility is just almost having this intuitive response in the moment, but the level of preparation that a leader and that an athlete at these levels, um, the work you put in, the deposit of preparation you put in, when you get into the moment, you have this bank to withdraw from that. To everybody else seems like, oh, you just adjusted, but to a champion, being able to adjust is directly related to the level of preparation. I can only adjust to the level that I've seen this circumstance from all the angles, that I've watched film, that I've had all these reps, that I've done all this mental work. And then when I get into the moment, I can draw on all of that work versus, once again, just showing up and kind of being reactive
Yeah.
and just responding to the circumstances versus, oh, I can still lead myself in the midst of these circumstances because I've seen this circumstance multiple times when nobody else was around.
Well, being a basketball player, you know that there's many different ways of getting to the hoop. But if you only have one or two, and then they're eventually going to figure you out and stop your movement to the rim. Am I right?
Yep.
And the same in baseball. A good baseball player might get to a certain level because he's a good pull hitter, or because he's a slap hitter, or whatever. But he becomes a great hitter when he learns how to go with the pitch, which is a completely different skill set. Where he can, in other words, he's going to hit it where the pitch is going to be, not versus trying to make something happen that you can't really make happen with that kind of a pitch. So yeah, preparation and getting better at things when no one's looking, that's what makes a difference.
And this last one here, maybe one of the most controversial play calls as a coach, in football history, if not sports history. The infamous Seahawks and Patriots game.
Yeah.
They're on the 1 yard line. And what's interesting about this, it was Pete Carroll that gets a lot of flack for the play call of not giving Marshawn Lynch the ball on the 1 yard line. But what I really hear talked about is the fact that Bill Belichick actually, his play call was to do a pass defense, not a run defense. So all of the world knows who Marshawn Lynch is. They're on the 1 yard line. He should get the ball. But Bill Belichick's preparation and his research and the data, and they're preparing for this game, the Seahawks actually are more inclined to pass, and so they actually end up passing. So Bill Belichick makes a decision not based off of
What they
the
should do.
assumption of
Yeah.
what everybody thinks should happen,
Yeah.
but off of their preparation, off of their research. And so they end up winning the championship because of Bill Belichick's seemingly counterintuitive call.
Yeah. It's kind of like, okay, I know you're going to run him, but you know that I know you're going to run him. So you're not going to run him. But now that I know that you're not going to run him, I'm going to know he is going to run him. And it's like, yeah, that takes a lot of guts to make that kind of call, because in the moment, you would think that would be, the whole culture of football is smash mouth, but it's become more sophisticated in the last 10 years, where, the level of athleticism and the creativity has changed, everything. And though that's prior to this, that was the Patriots, the Patriots themselves, kind of falls in the line with what we've been talking about. They become, I mean, when I was a kid, I even never heard of the Patriots. So if they existed, they must not have been very good.
I remember the red uniforms. That's as far back as I can remember.
Oh man, I don't even remember that. That tells you how much I paid attention to them until Belichick came. It's interesting because if he would have made the opposite call, we don't know how that would have turned out. But it is kind of funny to celebrate positive leadership decisions when sometimes you make a leadership decision that is solid, but it doesn't turn out well. And do we ever talk about that?
Yeah, I think maybe the question here is risk aversion versus risk when it comes to leadership decision making, or just this idea that there is a decision that we can all assume is the right decision, like give Marshawn Lynch the ball, and so we're going to do a run defense, versus, okay, I've been doing some work and I understand that this is a risky call, but I trust my preparation. I trust my gut. I trust, whatever, however you arrived at that decision. It's probably going to be an unpopular decision. And so for a great leader, how do you coach him through that idea of playing it safe and making a call that even if it didn't work out, everybody's like, yeah, I understand. I get that, versus going with what you really believe and have a conviction for, even if it's unpopular.
Well, and if you tell, I mean, the story that you've told says that he had already predetermined this decision, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
Yep.
He already prepared for it, so he took emotion out of it. Man, that's easier said than done.
His preparation addressed the emotion of the moment.
Yeah.
If we get into a space where trust is required to make these type of decisions, like Belichick, this obviously wasn't his first, go round. What would you say to the young leader that maybe hasn't built up enough credibility to make a gutsy decision? How would you coach them through building up credibility, being able to get into a position where you can, because, maybe as a younger leader, you're having to make the safer decision, but how do you become the Bill Belichick of your organization, of your environment?
Well, I think we've already talked about it. I think that the younger leader is going to have more passion than discipline, and the older leader is going to have much more discipline in how he approaches, the game. I kind of liken it to aging, in itself, and people might not like this part about it, but when I was younger and I wrestled, there wasn't a whole lot of caution in the way that I wrestled. God forbid I get in a wrestling match today. But if that were to happen, I guarantee you that I've already done the risk assessment. I know what I'm capable of doing and what I'm not capable of doing. And I would have a lot of predetermined decisions, even if it's split seconds, right? Even so, because sometimes when you know something well enough, you don't need days. It happens. You know what you're going to do. So some of it I would say is that you gain that by being around more experienced leaders. And because you'll not only see the predominance of their success, but you also see what they do with their good decisions that turn out bad. Because good decisions sometimes turn out bad.
Yeah.
Because it is a ball, it is a game. There's in the world of football, there's 22 players out there. So there's a lot of things. One slip can change the whole thing. Um, so you just never know. But I think that one of the things that I would correct in my younger development is that though I had mentors around me, I don't know that I chose them. I think they were there, and so I submitted to them. But if I were to do it all over again, I would probably consciously work on surrounding myself with people that I want to do what they're doing and be around them.
Man, one of the things I think about in my experience with sports is I would phrase this, in a more spiritual manner, but like the ministry of exposure. And to your point, not just being around great players or great leaders, but being in different environments, high pressure environments, maybe environments where nobody's in the stands and you got to figure out how do I get myself up and get my team up to play a game where there's not a lot of excitement around it, right? The more versions of this game that I can see, the better I'm going to be. But if I only keep choosing or I keep, uh, getting into spaces that are comfortable or familiar, then I am one dimensional, right? And so I think there's a level of exposure that's required for a leader. Even a Belichick, somebody who's aspiring to be like a Belichick. How many different types of rooms can you get in? How many different
Yeah.
types of spaces? How many different types of circumstances where you have to make certain type of decisions, right? Versus just kind of running in this one lane. And then when you get into other spaces, you are less likely to take a risk because you don't have the diversity of experience.
Well, when you're younger, I believe it or not, experience teaches you this. When you're younger, you don't realize how full of yourself you are.
Mm.
Now you're a basketball player, and I never heard this until I started playing, on a regular basis on a men's league in Colorado. But I remember I'd start hearing, because every sport has its own jargon, right? And I didn't know basketball jargon. And they talked about having a short memory, in shooting. And being a little bit of a perfectionist, when I missed a shot, I remembered it, and now I didn't want to miss another shot. So I became fearful, and that's not good. When you're fearful. So I remember several guys saying, "Man, you got to forget it. You got to forget it. You got to launch. You're open. You got to shoot. Otherwise, you're inconsequential. And now they can double team because they know you're not going to shoot."
Yeah.
Right. And so, you learn that. I say the same thing in this example in football. The young leader, if something went bad the previous play, the young leader is still thinking about the previous play. The young leader is still protesting. They're still mad at that player whereas the more mature leader has already moved on. Not that he necessarily forgot it, but he has moved on. It's now immaterial. It has changed the situation. And so there's less of their image involved in it, and they're more of the physician.
Mm.
When you're younger, you're often confused between being leader and player, and what should I do, right? That's what the player says, but the leader says, what should we do? And that comes when you become a little bit more, you become less insecure, about the fact that, oh yeah, I'm just a joker like anyone else, right? I'm not no better. What are we trying to do here? And you refocus your mind and your energy, on that.
Yeah, you mentioned something previously about it was Belichick and his predetermined decision took the emotion out of the moment. And in that same vein, some of the greatest players and the most composed players or coaches, um, they have a way of turning moments and experiences into information,
Yep.
and it just informs the next decision versus to your point, maybe whether it's insecurity or a lack of experience, but allowing those moments to stick with you and get stuck in your psyche and get stuck in the next decision or the next play, and you're What's informing you is the outcome, the feeling of the outcome. Okay, I missed the shot. That was a bad call. We're losing, and you go into the next moment still carrying the previous moment versus learning how to, okay, that happened, but okay, what can I extract from that moment to make the next best play, the next best decision? And yeah, I think leadership wise, how do we turn experiences into data?
Exactly right. I had a wrestler that I coached for a couple years who had this wicked temper, and he'd end up forfeiting matches because some of some injustice that happened on the mat, and then he would blow up, and he all he saw was red. And when I got to talk to him outside of that, I asked him if he knew that he could actually make a decision before the mat what he will and will not do. And he honestly looked at me and said, "No, I didn't know that." And if you think about it, a lot of times in our growth, sometimes we don't know stuff because his justification for flying off the handle was that this happened right now. It was unjust, and now I've got to protect myself. I've got to, and that was his logic. And he literally changed the way he did it just by making a decision ahead of time. And he says, "So no, I no longer blow up. I'm just going to focus on the match." And so it really does work. And that's why I brought that up. It's a very powerful thing that you can learn in all of life, but sports has a way of doing that because your adrenaline's gone, all kinds of things are happening, your ego, you know, I mean, when you got conflict on your own team, not to mention you're trying to beat the other team,
Yeah, perfect recipe for
disaster.
yeah, there's nothing like sports to just, it's a great human revealer.
It is.
It's
It
whatever's
is.
inside of you in that moment's gonna come
It
out,
is.
and you will see the preparation or lack thereof
Yeah.
pretty immediately. You can't really hide from the weight of competition in sports. And so, well, that's all we got today. It was great talking about leadership in sports with you, Jim. And for those of you out there, once again, man, we encourage you to share this with anybody who is hungry for leadership and looking to grow. And until next time, we'll see you here on the Today Count Show.
Thanks for spending part of your day with us on the Today Count Show. If today's conversation encouraged you, challenged you, or helped you grow, share it with someone in your circle because we're better when we grow together. And be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and stay connected with us on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And remember, real change doesn't happen someday, it happens today. Until next time, keep showing up, keep building, keep making today count.